This is In the Loop. I'm Cody LeGros, and let me tell you, after this week, we have earned this long weekend. Tonight, one and done or two to better protect you. We get an expert's opinion on the questions around Johnson & Johnson's COVID vaccine. Then we dig into the NCAA's new rules on name, image, and likeness, and how they could change the game for college athletes. But before you clock out for the week, here's what you need to know right now. 4th of July was supposed to be an independence from the virus bash, but with the Delta variant circulating in the US and vaccine rates plateauing, it's clear President Biden won't meet his goal come Sunday. He wanted to get 70% of the adult population at least partially vaccinated, but turns out no amount of free beers or million-dollar lotteries could make that happen. But it was an ambitious goal, and the numbers aren't too far off. According to the CDC, more than 66% of adults have gotten at least one COVID vaccine. Regardless of the vaccination status, people are packing their bags, ready to travel and celebrate this holiday weekend.
We think close to 48 million people are going to be traveling over the July 4th holiday period.
Across the pond, it's less of a party. The Delta variant is spreading quickly, bringing a 10-week decline in cases to an end. And the World Health Organization says a new COVID wave there could be imminent.
Last week, the number of cases rose by 10%, driven by increased mixing, travel, gatherings, and easing of social restrictions.
The legendary Ms. Britney Spears took an L when it comes to removing her dad, Jamie Spears, from his role as conservator of her $60 million estate. An LA Superior Court judge denied the motion, even after Britney gave testimony last week that shocked her fans, revealing she can't take breaks from work, underwent unnecessary psychiatric evaluations, and was forced to take medications against her will, even saying she involuntarily has an IUD in her body that prevents her from having children, because that's what her management team wants. But apparently that testimony didn't matter. The judge's ruling was based on a November request in which Spears' attorney asked to add a co-conservator alongside the singer's father, and the internet had something to say about it.
This is a story about a girl named
Britney Spears. I am traumatized. My dad's all for it.
Now, this case isn't over. Spears is reportedly planning to file a petition to terminate the conservatorship altogether, all while her dad's attorneys filed new requests for the judge to investigate her claims about being forced to take meds against her will. All this to say, it's a mess, and Britney's paying for all of it, and the Free Britney movement is far from over. In one of its last decisions this term, the Supreme Court weighed in on voting rights. Up for consideration was whether two Arizona voting laws disproportionately impact minority communities in violation of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Now, the case centered around Arizona's restrictions on provisional voting in the wrong precinct, and whether the state can forbid voters from relying on third parties to collect and deliver ballots. In a 6-3 vote, the justices upheld those laws. The court's 3 liberal members in dissent. There's been a big Republican push in state legislatures to pass new voting laws. Democrats and civil rights groups argue that many of them make it harder to vote, turning to the courts to decide. But this ruling from the conservative-leaning court could embolden those GOP-led efforts. With the Delta variant spreading across the globe, you may be wondering how effective your vaccine is at protecting you. Here to answer to booster or not to booster, it's Newsy's Lindsay Thies.
If you're fully vaccinated in the U.S., adding an extra COVID vaccine won't hurt, but it may not help either. New research shows mixing the AstraZeneca and Pfizer vaccines is safe and effective.
The AstraZeneca was never studied as a one dose.
Dr. Monica Gandhi, a leader in the infectious disease field, reminds us that the AstraZeneca shot, which is intended to be a 2-dose vaccine, is not approved in the U.S.
It was always supposed to be boosted, 4, 6, 8, 12 weeks. It depends on what each country decides.
Johnson & Johnson's vaccine does use the same technology as AZ, but they've been studied and shown to work as a 1-dose single shot.
We don't have a wealth of data to say how well you'll be protected by a second vaccine.
The National Institutes of Health just started recruiting people for an early phase 1/2 clinical trial to look at booster doses of different COVID-19 vaccines and how mixing them works, like someone fully vaccinated with J&J getting a Moderna booster, for example. The CDC does not recommend getting extra doses of vaccines. CVS and Walgreens tell Newsy they're going with the CDC guidance for now, too. The other part of this is something called breakthrough infections, when someone who's already been fully vaccinated still gets COVID-19. That's rare. To date, of the more than 150 million Americans fully vaccinated, only 4,115 have gotten a breakthrough infection. The CDC says that number is likely undercounted, but overall, it's still a rare thing.
There's no evidence that we have more breakthrough infections in this country from the Johnson & Johnson dose than we do with the mRNA vaccines.
This shit's real scary.
That was the case for Daniel Richard of Aurora, Colorado. He just returned home from the COVID ICU. He had been fully vaccinated with a Pfizer mRNA vaccine earlier this year.
Wear your mask, get vaccinated, wear your mask after you're vaccinated.
Bottom line, experts say it comes down to personal choice if someone wants to get an extra dose. But the science on that, we don't know yet. Lindsay Thies, Newsy, San Francisco.
Your mug, your money. That's the new message being sent to NCAA athletes now that college players can get paid off of their likeness. Newsy's Austin Kim explains how athletes plan to run the play.
A new era in NCAA sports as athletes take control of their personal brand. College players can now make money off their name, image, and likeness without risking their eligibility.
This is probably the singular most massive change to college sports that is happening to all student athletes across the country all at once.
Luke Fedlam is advising the Ohio State University Athletic Department on this issue. Between coaches, administrators, and the players themselves, he's trying to educate everyone on what's at stake after the NCAA lifted its amateurism rules.
What I always want to make sure that doesn't get lost in all of that conversation is the fact that student athletes are going to be able to make money, and they're going to be targets for people who might want to take advantage of them, and they need the education at the same time.
He's been teaching athletes about the language in endorsement agreements or advising coaches on giving athletes space to search for deals so teams don't lose out on the recruiting trail.
So they may not be the huge, six-figure types of opportunities or even five-figure opportunities, but to know that student athletes at least have the flexibility to make some money, I think we're going to see a lot of student athletes beyond just your star athletes being able to maximize name, image, and likeness.
Let's face it, a star quarterback or a playmaking guard will likely get the bulk of the lucrative offers. However, Open Doors, an athlete endorsement firm, found there's a big audience for other athletes. Of the 30 most followed college athletes on social media, almost half of them are from sports other than football and men's basketball, the two moneymakers for NCAA schools. And more than a third of those on the list are women.
So I like to think that there'll be more creativity among these Olympic sports. Well, they'll use their platform to really try to, shop, personal items, develop a YouTube page, try to become social media influencers.
Other athletes may make money off live gaming streams like Twitch, offer camps or lessons, or get more modest deals.
Maybe we have your name is used for a particular sandwich at a sub shop that's local. Most of these deals are going to be limited to the marketplace within which the school is located, though.
But this is still new territory. Those who follow college sports say it will take time for all involved to get a feel for the landscape.
It's possibly a situation where the student athlete is supporting a brand that has taken some sort of a social position that is inconsistent with what the school athletic department's values might be.
Like an athlete signing a deal that promotes cannabis products or involving an alcohol brand. All these questions will likely come up over the next year and be answered on the fly.
It's going to be a test run probably for the first year. I don't think there'll be much enforcement in the standpoint of eligibility loss because a player decided to take on something. I see it as more of an experiment early on, and then they'll begin to sort of tighten up our understanding of NIL, once we have a better sense of this.
The focus will also turn to Congress, which is considering a number of name, image, and likeness bills. Lawmakers may give more long-term clarity on how college athletes can make money with this new opportunity. For Newsy, I'm Austin Kim.
In 2020, the Human Rights Campaign recorded 44 violent deaths of transgender and gender nonconforming people, more than any year since it began tracking it in 2013. This year alone, HRC reports at least 29 violent deaths of a transgender person. The organization says at least because oftentimes the death of a trans person can be misreported. Amber Strong shows us the solutions to misgendering victims of violent crimes.
My name is TORI, but if my ID says Thomas and the police report that Thomas Cooper was killed and nobody in the community knows a Thomas Cooper, then how are they ever going to solve my case?
This is the reality for some in the transgender community as they deal with a recorded uptick in violence and murder.
There are a few possible solutions to stop misgendering after a violent crime. The first starts with the media.
Blue Buchanan, who studies sociology and uses they-them pronouns, says journalists should dig deeper into a person's life before reporting.
If you are a journalist and are reporting on a death of somebody, taking a few hours to do the footwork, to call that person's family and friends to find out, hey, what did this person like to be called? What were their pronouns?
The second is a change in police policies, since journalists often rely on police reports and storytelling. Newsy found a patchwork of policies on how different cities record violence. For example, Atlanta's police department lists a person's sex as what's written on their official government ID, and if any other names are listed, it will be recorded as an alias. While others, like the Charlotte Police Department in North Carolina, tell Newsy they don't have a standard operating procedure that outlines interaction with transgender people, but are drafting one to put in place. But advocates are torn on whether police are really the solution.
I would like police to be more engaged with folks in the community.
I don't want more cops coming around, for example, Black trans spaces to ask, somebody what their friend's name was, because that only creates more opportunities for potential violence. Just be like, leave the community safety to the community.
It's a sentiment Seattle LGBTQ liaison officer Dorian Corrillo says he's heard before.
It is not public knowledge what I do outside of my friends group. I mean, it's always kind of been that way, especially now. It's like, you don't say what I do. We don't talk about work. You're kind of in the closet again.
Pride events in Seattle and New York City banned uniformed police from attending this year, citing their mistreatment of the community, particularly Black trans people. And Black Lives Matter sued the city of Seattle in 2020, accusing the police department of excessive force during last summer's racial justice protest. A judge agreed in part that their use of blast balls and pepper spray violated an earlier injunction against the department. Corrillo says there's a growing divide between the police force, the city, and the citizens. That makes it difficult to build relationships.
We've lost almost 300 police officers, and when we're a police agency of 1,400, that's a significant level.
Despite the challenges, he says the department's policy calls on officers to use both the legal name and adopted name on police reports. In a sample he sent to Newsy, the victim's legal name, Frank Simpson, is used in the start of the report, but the preferred name, Tammy, is used throughout the remainder. Some advocates say that should be the standard.
People change their names and we just call them by their new name. So it's a bunch of crap that when police officers or anybody say, well, I can't call a trans person by their name. Yes, you can.
Amber Strong, Newsy.
After the break, re-entering society after a pandemic is something, okay? We've got a lot of pain to unpack, and we learn how to process some of that grief when we return. Let's be real, okay? We are entering a new phase of the pandemic in the U.S., and it feels like the dust might be settling as our country reopens. But for many of us, we're feeling what it's like getting back to normal without the ones we lost. The grief, the memories we will never make, the processing of pain that was interrupted by living in isolation. It's all very real. And Newsy's Kat Sandoval explains why it's a good time to love thy neighbor.
I'm still grieving, and I think I'm going to grieve the rest of my life.
Rosalie Castro lost her twin sister, Rosary, to COVID last year.
I didn't have any time to grieve the day my sister died.
Like most Americans, Castro didn't get a chance to say goodbye to her sister in person, and there wasn't a funeral. Now that states are reopening, it's a reminder for some that life is continuing without their loved ones, as things are starting to get back to normal.
We all need to be more patient with each other, because those of us, myself included, who lost somebody during the pandemic, will need to find more unique ways, not the usual ways, to deal with our grief.
Grief expert Pauline Boss says the pandemic prevented so many from taking part in usual rituals of comfort, like funerals, memorial services, or in-person goodbyes.
The process has been interrupted by the virus, by the disease, by the isolation.
Because of this, many are now dealing with unresolved or delayed grief.
They who have had a loved one die have had isolation on top of the normal isolation we feel in grief.
David KESSLER has been running online grief groups.
As things are beginning to open, many people are now planning those memorials that they weren't able to have.
But he says they're met with people saying, it's been a year, why do it now?
Grief must be witnessed. We want our loved one's life and death to have mattered. When you hear of a delayed funeral, show up. Show up as if it just happened last week. There's no timeline in grief.
It wasn't until the first anniversary of Rosary's death in Los Angeles that Castro was able to celebrate her sister's life among friends and family.
My niece made these nice t-shirts with a picture of Rosary. It's a memory of my sister. So I wear that once a week at work because I want to let people know that this is my sister.
Experts recommend that we shouldn't grieve alone.
Now that things are opening up, we don't have to do it alone anymore. It is okay to ask for help.
For Newsy, I'm Kat Sandoval.
Hey, just a reminder that we always love hearing from the viewers. So if you have any questions or comments on what you've seen today, reach out to us on Twitter using the hashtag #NewsyInTheLoop. We'll be right back. Hospitals across the country have faced challenges during the pandemic, and rural hospitals were hit the hardest. They are shutting down at record rates. 20 emergency rooms have closed just in the last year. And some experts say lives are being lost because of it. National reporter Chris Conti shows us how some hospitals are trying to desperately hold on for the communities they serve.
There are corners of this country fit for the opening montage of a movie. But the script given to Johnny Priestley is one he's desperate to rewrite.
It's almost discriminatory.
The 52-year-old bought Cumberland River Hospital in Salina, Tennessee 2 years ago. He was briefly able to open it last year before having to close.
Fully functioning hospital. Pharmacies even still staffed with full medicines.
With COVID cases in this county of 7,600 people spiking last fall, the only ER within a 90-mile radius was gone.
It is insane. The people of the rural Appalachia are having to travel an hour to an hour and a half to get health care. And that's just truly, you see that in third world countries. It should not be happening here in the United States.
Johnny Priestley is still waiting on nearly $2 million in reimbursements from insurance companies. CARES Act money allocated in December by the federal government meant for hospitals like this one went elsewhere in the state.
Well, it's very discouraging because we had worked very intently to get the facility opened.
So here sits Cumberland River Hospital, silent and empty, in the middle of a pandemic.
There's no doubt in my mind that people ended up dying that may not have had to have died because of their lack of access to health care in the rural communities.
By some estimates, hospitals could still be looking at $53 billion in lost revenue for 2021.
We're going to see a lot of closures. I think the pandemic is going to really ravage a lot of rural facilities.
Brock Slaybach is with the National Rural Health Association. To help rural hospitals on life support, they're lobbying the Biden administration to revive the White House's Rural Health Council, stop cuts to rural Medicare payments, and help get more doctors into some of this country's poorest hospitals.
It creates what I refer to as a downward spiral.
2020 was a record year for rural hospital closures. 20 shuttered their doors during the pandemic. A staggering 181 emergency rooms have closed since 2005. Most have been in states that haven't expanded Medicaid.
The longer that you're closed, the increasing complexity of reopening becomes.
I'm sitting out here with no support from our state or federal government.
Johnny Priestley's expenses are running him around $12,000 a month. He's drained every ounce of his personal savings. So to keep from foreclosure, he started renting the hospital out to movie production crews.
Filming movies in a fully operational hospital that should be saving lives.
When hospitals across America are forced to become movie sets just to stay alive, people like Johnny Priestley can't help but wonder how the script for a horror film became a real-life nightmare.
We just need the federal government to step in and say, we've got to reopen these facilities.
In Salina, Tennessee, I'm Chris Conti.
Thank you for watching In the Loop and for sticking with yours truly the past few days. Have no fear, Christian Bryant will be back in the saddle next week. Until then, I'm Cody LeGros. Top stories from Newsy are headed your way right now.